Thank you to everyone who's attending today. Welcome to the third and final masterclass in the Redesign Summer Masterclass series. I know you're used to seeing Logan's face up here, but my name is Antonio Dowling and I'm the other half of Redesign. Today, we are very fortunate to be joined by Emmy Award-winning artist Titus Underwood. Titus is Principal Oboe of the Nashville Symphony Orchestra and the 2021 recipient of the Sphinx Medal of Excellence Award. Prior to the Nashville Symphony Orchestra, he was acting associate principal of Utah Symphony. He has performed as a guest principal of the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, Miami Symphony Orchestra, and Florida Orchestra. Also, he has played with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, Atlanta Symphony, Puerto Rico Symphony, and San Diego Symphony. Also, please go watch Titus's film, A Tale of Two Tales. We'll put a link to that in the chat here. It is beyond excellent. So thank you for being here, Titus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure, and I'm excited to be here. And I had a great time doing the reed making Instagram thing. That was a lot of fun. So
absolutely. So we have four performers in the masterclass today. Each will have 20 to 25 minutes, and we'll save some time at the end for questions for Titus. To the audience, please turn off your microphones and potentially your camera until the question portion. By the way, there will be a replay of this masterclass uploaded to our YouTube channel in the next few days if you want to go back and review that. So without further ado, our first performer is Matthew Miller from Yale University, who will be playing the Allemande from Bach's A minor partita, BWV 1013.
Hi.
hello. Play a few notes. Get get the thing going, and then we'll jump into it. Nice. Sounds good on my end.
Great. I was wondering, should I play with the repeat or no repeat?
Let's play without the repeat for now. Let's just play it through, then we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Great job. Great job. Way to get way up there. Great job. Great job. Great preparation, great interpretation. I mean, great handling of this piece. I know this can be a very exhausting piece to play. It's hard to get through. A lot of people play at the beginning of the recital. I mean, you got to be bold to do it, but I mean, you're the first one up to play some Bach, and you handled it very well. You handled it very well. But I kind of want to stick on a theme here. The one thing that I saw was it was a little bit of trouble in the low register. The command of the low register seemed to not be as easy as the mid register, and the high register felt pretty good. But one thing I want to talk about, especially with oboe playing, is that I want oboe players. We're it's bred in us to like be afraid of the low register, like from a very young age. It's loud. It's not as easy to play. You know, it doesn't. You know, sometimes composers want to put it in quiet spots when we have to play piano. We don't like that necessarily. But one thing that one has to think about is that our tone is built from the bottom up, which means that it's built from the bottom of the oboe up. And I always, tell my students, like, you have to play the whole oboe. Is the low register isn't an inconvenienced middle register. Every note's not going to feel like a middle D. And the high register isn't like, it's kind of flat sometimes. And what are the fingerings when it gets above high D? You have to feel comfortable playing the whole entire instrument. And that's why things like long tones, especially starting in the low register, is really good. And really feeling like that register, and what I think of, especially for the tone itself, to broaden our tones and mature our tones, is I like to play from the low register and then transfer that quality from the low register up the octave, and then transfer that middle octave up to the high octave, so everything feels even. And a lot of times that I do that with a drone. So da 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 da. And what I would think of is wherever your air is on that lowest note is where you should be starting. It shouldn't be a readjustment because a low note is there and inconvenience to you. Your air should be in such a place when the low register is there, you're able to just pluck that low note out of nothing instead of reaching for it. Like we reach for the high register. Let's start from the top, sure. And let's I'll come in as we go along. Let's start from the very top. Okay. Let's start. Can you play a low D for me? Like it's full and round. Can you play that down the octave, the first part down the octave? But just start just a few, a measure or two, like down the octave. And then you can play that. Of course, you can't go that low, but okay. Yeah. Da 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 ba 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 ba. Yeah. And the thing, and the reason why I'm asking you that, you don't have to necessarily do it up to tempo, but one of the main things I like to do, and really thinking about playing down, and I try to transfer that up. So when you're going down to the lowest note within that passage, it's not as weird, and your air's in a different place. So when I'm going up, I'm thinking down. You never want to go up on the oboe or wind up. A lot of us overshift too much, So play it down. How about slur it for me? Just do that, just that one measure, but slow, and really think about your air and how full and beautiful can you make the sound, but not clenching, but support. Now do that one measure, and then go right into as it's written from the beginning. But don't shift your air. Okay. Think more down.
So play it down the octave and then go to the top again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then go up the octave.
Okay.
As written.
Oh.
See how much easier the G is now?
Yeah.
Because your air is in a different place. You're already thinking up from the beginning. Even from the beginning, start from the middle D. Like I'm already thinking about my low G already before I'm even there. My air, I'm open. And this is all over the place. It's very arpeggiated. So you don't have room to, and if you're doing that the whole time, it gets exhausting. So let's try that again. Let's play it through a little bit, thinking more down. Play to the bottom of the sound. And I'm gonna give you an imagery that I usually think of. When I'm thinking of my sound, I think of a circle. And I'm always trying to fill in the bottom half of that circle. The upper half of that circle will always be heard because it's an oboe. The upper partials will always be heard. But those lower partials are the way that makes our lower register more comfortable, make our sound deeper. I'm thinking about playing on the back end of the oboe, the bottom half, going for more of the depth of the sound. Depth and life in the sound is what I'm thinking of. And that makes these things, makes the tone more even, makes the intonation more centered, and also makes your air a little bit more relaxed. Let's try it again from the top with that in mind. Good, good, good. And one thing I would do, I think that I usually do is I build the triad that I'm playing in to see, and this is G minor, right? So I'm thinking like, how can I build this triad and make it like really get the tone even? Like I'm really trying to think of how do I even this all out? So when I come down to this low D, it's not a foreign entity to me. So a lot of times, how often do you play with a drone?
Usually when I do long tones, every other day or so.
Okay.
For the drone, not the long tones, but
yeah. Do you ever put on the drone when you're playing music?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Something like this that spells out triads the whole time, it's arpeggiated the whole time. I would definitely practice it with a G drone. I put on a G drone and a D drone just to make sure I'm centered. Because a lot of times when we're missing notes, we're playing too sharp. Especially when the low register starts to give out. We're definitely playing a little bit on the high side. I mean, sometimes they can do with a reed thing or oboe adjustment things. There are a lot of factors that go into notes missing on the oboe, right? Or misfiring, rather. But the thing I really want you to think about is try to use really objective tools to optimize your own playing. And what I mean by this air, what will make it easier is if you turn on a G drone and then play this, play it on the D drone and then played it, and see how you can keep it in tune from the top, from the beginning of this to the end. How centered can your pitch be? Like, could you play this whole first movement, right? Absolutely as centered as you can, all the way until you get to the very end, to the high G, right? And that's absolutely in place. That's those are the objective tools rather than just learning the notes and kind of figuring out the acrobatics of it. You'll really, really start to feel your air and where to place it because you won't be over shifting because you'll be hearing the pitch and putting it in place. Let's do a little bit more playing before we close out. Let's start where we left off. This is good. This is good. This is good. You're playing a little bit more in a relaxed place. And plus, you probably got the nerves out a little bit. And, from playing the first time through, it sounds a little bit more down. I want you to keep your ear out the whole time when you're playing. Like, I understand that being expressive and letting go, but always keep that kind of pitch monitor there the whole time. Because not only does that keep your everything in check as far as like intonation is concerned, it also keeps your air in the right place, that you're not overcompensating. That's the biggest thing that you want to keep in mind when you're playing something, right? And that's why I said really use objective measures to when you're practicing. And I usually say, we're in the art form of practice, and we sometimes perform. That we're sometimes, you're delivering to me what you did in private, and then you hope that you can do what you promised yourself to a public audience. That's usually how this works. But in order for that to be at its optimal place, you have to make sure that when you're in the practice room, that everything you do is absolutely objective. And the reason why I want you to check with your low register to get more comfortable there, when you're starting to play with a drone and play more center and with the pitch, you will see that your air starts to change. You get more comfortable in that register. That informs your air and that informs your reads. So as you start to really, really center things, you'll really start to feel your air change and you'll demand more of your reads, which will give you more comfort in the low register. So really think about that. Think about playing lone tones in the low register, not just in the mid register. Think about playing like starting off your day with some scales and feeling comfortable in the places where you don't feel as comfortable. And once you start working on those things that are uncomfortable, it makes everything that you feel comfortable better. That's just something to think about, because you have a very beautiful sound and very, very good command over things, but just to elevate it a little bit more, push yourself a little bit further. Don't ever forget your friends, your metronome and your tuner. They're your best friends. They're your friends that always tell you the truth. So those are the things I really want you to think about. But you said you're going to be a sophomore next year, right? Yes. Well, you sound great, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon, very, very, very much soon. So I'm glad that you played for me today. So it sounds great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great job, Matthew. Great job.
Awesome. Fantastic, Matthew. Where our next performer is Haley Hoffman from CIM, and she'll be starting with an excerpt from the second movement of Schubert's Ninth Symphony.
Hello.
Hello, Haley. How you doing?
I'm good.
All right. Let's do some Schubert.
All right. Oh, you want me to play that?
I want to hear the B.
Okay.
No, it's fine. You don't have to play it now. You don't have to play the B now. I gave the gesture and the B was gone. I mean, sometimes people ask for
some people say it's ridiculous, some people demand it, so I will do it next time.
Is that well, great job. Beautiful job. Beautiful job. Yes, great interpretation of it. Nice and well paced. I like your tempo that you took. I'm going to kind of ride on a theme here. I think this excerpt is deceivingly. I don't like to put in people's minds that excerpts are difficult. I don't like to be like, this is hard. Then you get in your head and then you're overthinking it. But one thing about excerpts is that they have to be very detailed and they have to be very thought out. So what's your accompaniment at the beginning?
It's the string. So the basses have the melody before you. Um, and then you enter,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same motives underneath you.
Yes. Bum 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 dum 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 bum 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 bee dum dum dum. So the way that I think of this, there's a few things in his excerpts that can be very telling. Two, the nuance in it, using your air in a way that's nuanced. Other thing is intonation and pitch. Starts on the middle E. E was slightly high, a little bit on the high side. Make sure that your E's are in place. This is another thing that I ask people to play this with a drone as well. A drone is something that all of us should adopt to be using quite regularly when we're playing, especially excerpts. Um, the other thing is really the problem with excerpts is the best system that we have now to hire, but it's not like the best system to really review people necessarily. But it's the best one we came up with, which means that it's a solo line completely taken out of context that you have to invoke the full orchestra in my imagination when you're playing, while battling the wildest imaginations of people's expectations from you behind the screen. So there are a lot of things going on at once, but that doesn't mean that it's rocket science, right? The first thing I want to think about is that that first E needs to be leading. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dee-yum, bum, bum, bum. So it's going to that last E. I mean, a lot of people play this E kind of independently. They go, okay. It needs to have direction to it. Ding, da-dum, da-dum, da-dee-yum, bum, 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 bum. And those two E's are equal. The expressive here. And make sure this is in tune. So it's the thing about this excerpt is it has this dotted, 16th rhythm, and this rhythm is usually not played well by a lot of people. You played it quite well. And then it has the juxtaposition of this very legato thing at the end. That goes from an E to an A. And the A, when I heard it, was a little on the high side. But make sure that you're really, really thinking down. It's very easy when you get into the pianissimo dynamic to kind of hold the reed a little bit more.
Right.
A pianissimo is not an inconvenient mezzo forte, which means you just need to use more support for that dynamic to be comfortable. All right. Let's start from the top, but I want this to have a little bit more direction in. It's good. It's good. Direction doesn't mean necessarily crescendoing all the time.
Okay.
It's coming from somewhere or going to somewhere. It can be in either direction. So this starts off D, a little decay. Now, can I hear you play it? Good, good, good. So, two things at the beginning. Do not bite the grace note D. Then go D, to try to protect the C. Play into the C. It's a middle C. I mean, the more you play down into the C, the more full it's going to sound. The more you pinch it, the less full it's going to sound. So don't protect the grace note because you think the C is going to be nasty and stick out. Start off with full support. Yes. Yes, better. Yes, it's a lot better. Then the other thing is da-dum, this needs to have kind of an M syllable to it. Da-dum, and for it to have direction, the small notes belong to the big notes. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dee, da-dum, da-dum, da-dee. Let's put it all together. Yes, and to even make this stick out a little bit more, thumb, bum, B is going to the E, so those need to step up. Just start from, let's not do the first E first. Let's go da-dum, da-dum, da-dee, bum, bum, bum. But not pecky, not pecky. It gets better as it goes. I'm being super picky about excerpts because I'm gonna make it stick in your brain. I'm real.
Please do.
I'm gonna stay on you. Now, let the residual error, da-dum, da-dum, da-dee, da-da, don't cut it off. Let the residual error be caught by the support. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dee, da-dum, da-dum, da-dee. Better? Yes, it's that. Don't be scared of the C. Don't block the C for no reason. Play down into it. Do it again.
Sorry.
It's fine. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's better. Yes, that's better. Now let's start from the beginning and put those first two phrases together, and then we'll put the next phrase together. But I'm gonna give you one thing. I'm gonna be real picky. Don't let your E be sharp. Oh, na pa pom 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 pom. Okay, this is good. It's good, but you're making it back. With this, you're making it backwards. The phrasing. You're going dee ya da dum. It's dee ya da dum, buddy. It's backwards. The accent is on the D. Mm-hmm. But this is an oboism, right? The F is more resonant.
Right.
So because the F is more resonant, it's going to want to be louder, which means that you're going to have to use your support and less volume of air so that F doesn't stick out from the D. Mm-hmm. Buddy. But sing on it. This is good. Keep the rhythmic gesture the same. That's why I said the rhythm in this is very paramount. Don't start getting triplety. It went. Yes. Keep the rhythmic integrity absolutely intact. We're servants to time. Rhythm is the absolute fundamental thing of music. Servants to time and rhythm. It's not approximate, it's exact. Buddy. Good. Okay, let's stop there. Very good. Before we get to the next part. Sometimes the rhythm is intact and sometimes it's not. I want you to record. How often do you record yourself?
Pretty often, but I haven't done enough recording with this excerpt, I'm sure.
Okay. So the reason why I asked that, because some of the things that I'm hearing, you were here.
Right.
You better catch yourself. So this is how you would record yourself. I want you to really keep this in mind. When you're recording yourself, think of it as proof listening. Just like you proofread a paper and you do spell check and grammar, you don't say to yourself if you misspelled a few words, man, I can't spell, I'm not writing anymore. I'm discouraged. You shouldn't do the same thing. Man, you just fix it. So the same thing when you're listening to yourself recording. I understand we're in a sensitive art form. We're sensitive about our art. And someone says, oh, that guy sounds terrible. You know, I'll feel a certain way about that, right? But at the same time, you want to try to distance yourself from the sound that you're crafting. Do you proof listen to it? You say, what do I want from this sound? This needs to be a little bit more in tune. That rhythm isn't quite right. But you're the person who's going to do the corrections to the sound because you're crafting your own sound. So what you think of it is this. The reason why I said practice with a tuner, especially play this with a drone as well, because the E's do creep up a little bit. I want the pitch to be centered. The reason why I tell people to be very as objective as possible, because when you're practicing excerpts, especially for an audition, you want the musical idea to be paramount. This is the music and this is the technique. The technique must rise to the musical idea. You never compromise a musical idea for your technical convenience. You always rise to the higher musical occasion. And that's why you have to use those objective tools in this. Really get the rhythm right. Sing your part. How often do you sing your part?
I do pretty often to try to mimic
That's great.
and
Yes, that is great. I would even record yourself singing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is something you're gonna put on YouTube or something. But the point that I'm making is that it's there for your practice review. It's there for you to build. I would say this is the voice we chose. This is the voice we're given. You're trying to merge the two when you're practicing. You know, so use your voice as a tool of artistic expression and to figure things out. Use your drone to make sure that your pitch is centered. Really listen to the recordings to make sure that your rhythm is exact. Like really, really exact. Because the first thing people do in an audition is this. And why do you think people start tapping their finger? Why do you think?
I mean, like you said, I like your phrase "servants to time," but that's just like it's so objective is one of the first things that has to be there in order for the music to be played in the way that it deserves to be.
Absolutely. Great answer. The other thing is that majority of your committee are not oboe players. Mm-hmm. So what are they going to do? They're not going to be just thinking about just interpretation necessarily. They're going to go for the low-hanging fruit that they know. Intonation, rhythm, articulation, is the sound decent? Because I don't really know Schubert 9 that well. I'm a person who plays the xylophone most of the time in the orchestra. I play string bass. I don't really play solo lines that much. I'm a section violist. You know, but I do know rhythm. I do know intonation because we all have that in common. So use your recorder as your best friend. Not a point to critique yourself as a player, but to critique the sound that you're listening to and believing that on the other end, if you listen to that sound, you have the ability to correct whatever you expect of that sound. But the best way is to make sure that you're objective when you're practicing so that when you do record, you're producing something better each time. Let's do the second half of this when it goes into pianissimo. Support more, open up more, use more of your air. The embouchure is there to shape the wind, not make. It's there to shape the sound, not make the sound. Use your support when it's very quiet, and then we'll continue to the end of the excerpt. Different color, pianissimo. This is pianissimo. This is pianissimo. This is pianissimo. Good. You played the beat for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. One thing I want you to really think about in this is making it super legato on that spot. And you don't want to blow down into the downward slur. The downward slur kind of falls out of the instrument. The more you blow down to it, the more the note cracks. That's another thing that people be looking for. Really dominate the obvious spots, especially that trill. The trill never sounded quite as comfortable as I wanted to sound.
Right.
So really make sure that this trill is comfortable. Make sure that downward slur from the E to the G sharp is very comfortable. You want to dominate in spots where people are expecting mistakes to happen, because majority of people are going to make mistakes in the same places. There are not going to be many new mistakes amongst even 80 candidates. There's going to be the same mistakes over and over again. That's how auditions become very monotonous. The last thing I'm going to say before we depart is really practice this with a metronome, because you speed up a little bit as it goes along.
Okay.
Make sure that the reason why people speed up because they feel like they're not in the tempo that they wanted to start in. So they try to make up the time. Make sure you're in a tempo that you sit in, not a tempo that you chase. So be very settled in your tempo, set your tempo, be religious about how you start that each time. A really good thing, especially if you're preparing for auditions, because I've heard this act up a lot this summer, so I think I know what list you're playing from. The good thing that you want to do is, the good thing that you want to do, get in the habit of just starting your excerpts. Make sure you start them in tempo, in time, and in tune. If you knock out just those basics in an audition, you're knocking out 90% of the people. Most people play with bad riddle in auditions, and then their intonation goes out the window. And good players, that happens too. So I'll talk more about that at the end of the class about audition things, thinking about it. But you sound great. Very beautiful sound, very expressive. I love your vibrato. Be objective, because the screen doesn't lie. Do yourself that favor. If you're putting in the time, you're going to fly out there, get the hotel, make the reads, and I think you may have to make reads and adjust them at this place that I'm thinking, because it's a little higher up. Make sure that everything is in place, all right?
Thank you so much.
Great job, Haley. You're welcome. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley. So our next performer is Nat Feldposh, and she's from Grand Valley State University, and she will be playing the first of Dorati's 5 pieces.
Awesome. Hello, Nat. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
All right, great. I'm doing just fine. I think there's a little echo, so I'll mute on my side. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start it out.
All right, would you like me to just play to the end?
Yeah, to the end of this first movement, yes.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Nat.
know how to.
Nat, would you be able to turn on your echo cancellation?
Yeah, let me try that.
Thanks.
There we go.
All right. There we go. Great. I thought I was in a stadium. But
no.
no. It was just the echo. Like it's 10,000 people out there. No, great job. Great facility. And I mean, this is quite a difficult piece to play. So congratulations on that. And having command over it, just such fluency in all these very, very difficult spots and chromaticisms and things. So very good, very good. The one thing I want to talk about is kind of the groove of the piece. So these Dorati 5 pieces can easily be turned into like almost etude-ish at times, and kind of like, hey, check out my technique. But I want the feel of it to be right. It's more dance-like than anything else. Because one thing, especially even if you're playing Pasculi, right, or whatever, in the case you're playing the Grand Pasculi, which are like our Paganinis of oboe. We want to ensure that our musical idea is the most dominant, and that we're never playing in a way to prove our standard of oboe playing, but playing in a way to prove our standard of musicianship. So when you're approaching something like this, it's very easy to fall in the category of, I got to get this right. I got to get this right. Oh, I got to get this right. Ooh, it's right. It's going right. It's very easy to kind of fall into that. So you want to really get the feel of this, even from the very beginning. And even in some of the pauses and stuff. The pauses a lot of times in this music is for solo oboe music to give us a little rest, but it's also put in place, thoughtful by the composer, that is there for musical purposes. So let's make sure that you're not losing momentum in the piece when you're taking time. Building up our endurance enough that we're able to get through this without it being such, a heavy lift. Let's take it from the top. I just want this to have a little bit more swing to it. Like just more groovy.
Okay.
And then now the part. And then it gets, a little crazy. So let's start from the top. It's a little more breezy than we think it is.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Can you sing from the very first note? Not Baba. I know it's loud, but 4 in song.
Okay.
Even here. Take your time. Keep the groove going. Don't switch the character. That's why I say get etudes. Keep the groove going that you set up from the beginning. Because if you throw the groove off, you're throwing off my expectation. But not in the best way. You get me in this groove. Someone turns on music and it's your favorite song, the DJ changes it too fast. Then he changed to the next song too fast, and the next song, it's like, I can't get me in the groove. So, keep the groove going. You're still in the groove. Even if you take more time than I take, you still have to keep the move that you're setting up here. You're at the very beginning here. So set the landscape of what I'm listening to. Paint the picture for me vividly without making it too disjunct. From the top, one more time. Remember, song from the beginning. Even there, take your time. You have more time than you think you do. Really embellish these. You have more time. Don't feel hurried in any way. Feel the resistance of the rhythm. Bottom, bottom, bum ba dum bottom, bum ba da 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 bottom, da 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 dee ba da dee da 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 da. Like really feel the resistance of the rhythm, because that's what makes this language of this piece speak more. If you feel the groove, there's a groove here, and I'm gonna ask you this, and this is for the whole class to hear, is a lot of times we practice with on beats, right?
Yeah.
A Mozart concerto. But what if you practice it with off beats? What I usually call people practicing with on beats most of the time is tempo chasing. They're trying to play it up to tempo. I gotta get it up to tempo. Get up to tempo. We've heard this. We all talk about playing up to tempo. But what about playing in the groove, the pulse? The pulse is in your gut, but you feel the rhythm as your pulse. And you feel that in tempo. It's the other way around. So if you're playing something like this, it give it a whole different feel. That's a different feel. So I want you to use your metronome not as just something to get you up to tempo, but as a tool to hone your pulse and rhythm so that you feel the groove of your music. And that'll give you'll feel the resistance in the rhythm a little bit more. You'll feel a little bit more space in the rhythm, not in a way that you're slowing it down, but you're kind of glossing over things a little quickly. And I wish I felt a little bit more in between the rhythm and the notes, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I love when you sing at the beginning. It gives me a more dolce sound to your sound as well. A little more singing dolce to the sound. Let's start from the top one more time, and then we'll keep going.
Okay.
Keep going, keep going. Okay, so I'm gonna pick on you a little bit about your note endings. Just a little bit. Make sure that you're taking care of the end of the note. That it goes up with an upward inflection. Because what I can like notes that are like played like and one is kind of we don't want to amputate any notes, you know. And then the other thing is like eating a bag of chips and the last one's burnt. And then the store is closed. And there are no more chips in the house to get that taste out your mouth. So really take care of the end. You want to save. I want to be, you're saving the last bite for last. It got to be good. So when you're ending that note, especially in the phrase, take care of it. That my ear doesn't go, ugh, what is that? After you put all that good stuff in the middle. And then my last impression is a note that's supported all the way through, follow through in your note endings, okay? Let's play a little bit of the fast section in our last few minutes.
Okay.
Keep going, keep going. This is very good. Keep going. Okay, here's when your groove comes back. Your groove comes back. It's like an interruption that happens. It's like, that's the mean person. It's like, why is everybody having a good time and dancing? Forget him. Whatever. And even gonna still have a good time.
Okay.
These the characters you got to bring out. The groove at the beginning, then someone's not really liking it. Then the groove comes back. It's like, we're not stopping the party. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. So really show the juxtaposition of the two things that you're showing here. And your imagery can be different than mine. It doesn't have to be the party, right? It can be something completely different. It can be two bumblebees fighting or something. I don't know. But the point that I'm making is that I want you to really bring out the characters. The characters are brought out in the groove. The groove is based in the rhythm. The rhythm has to be felt with a strong pulse, which is in time. So really, when you're approaching a piece of music, especially like this, you start thinking about it differently because you think about your pulse and your rhythm differently than you were before. All right. Let's start right before it goes back to the groove, like a measure before that.
Okay.
Keep going. Okay, so see how these differences? This is why I say you don't want it to sound like an etude. I want you to think about it musically first.
Okay.
You've spent a lot of time, your fingers are great. Fluent your fingers getting around the oboe, no problem. You're just flying up and down the thing like it's no problem. But I don't want you to let your own playing down, but not bringing out the character, using that facility to bring out a musical idea, not to show technical impressiveness or whatever. I want you to think more of, hey, I can tell that you practice it, and it's great. But I want something more. Once I hear the fingers flying, I need character with that. It's like the person who learns how to dunk the goal, and then the person who can throw it between their legs and backwards and jump from the free throw line. Those are two, they're both dunking in the goal. But which one would you rather watch? So really use your imagination when you're going, especially do these things that are fast and impressive. See what the character of it is. A lot of times etudes are there to show like technical difficulties, right? We're playing a furling or especially those gelé etudes, like those are just, Loyon studies, all these things. They're just finger twisters. It's so you can show up to this music that is very, very difficult with no problem here, right? But you're able to use your imagination to bring out the musical ideas in. So I want you to, and also think about practicing with offbeats sometimes. Make that a part of your practice. A lot of jazz players do that, and they typically have better rhythm than us. So use all your tools, not just getting the technique right, but your imagination as well, because they're very beautiful sound and very fluent way of playing the oboe. I don't want you to shortchange your imagination when you're approaching music, okay?
Okay.
Beautiful job. Beautiful, beautiful job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Awesome. Great job, Matt. So our final performer is Tyler Romsberg from University of North Texas, and he will be playing Telemann's Fantasia number 1.
Awesome.
Okay. Hi.
Hello. Sounds good on this end. Sounds good on this end. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful job. Beautiful job. Very, very beautiful. Very free and very commanding and exciting. Lots of character, lots of riff that are taken when you're playing. So that's very, very appreciated. Like very beautiful. One thing I want to talk about is making sure that and this is something I talked about previously with other players that played with, make sure that your pitch is very centered. I'm gonna ask you, have you played this with a drone before? Good. And really, really a good thing when you're practicing with the drone is to turn the drone on and then play a little softer than you usually play.
Okay.
Like really listen in. But not just, and the trick that we can fall into when we're playing with the drone. The reason why I'm very big on drones and not just tuners, because we're not just looking to hit the green light, right? One thing I think about is the notes in relation to the note that's the drone or the tonic or the fifth or whatever you choose to put it on. That the notes in relation to that are also in place, right? Because a lot of times when we're playing with the drone, we tend to have the note that's the drone in tune, but not necessarily listen to all the intervals. And that's the main purpose, is to train your ear to make sure that the intervals are in the right place, not just the tonic note that we have the drone on. So let's kind of take this from the beginning. And make sure you keep a singing quality, because it got a little percussive at times. Make sure that we're keeping it very round, deep, and singing dolce, especially with this. I like the excitement. Keep the excitement, but know where your boundaries are when you're playing, especially in the loud sections. Let's start from the top. And even from the beginning, your first attack. Really, really, right here is this. I mean, it's fine if you want to start exciting, but like really, really open up more instead of, support the sound before you play. Support the silence before the audible sound. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What did you do differently?
I didn't keep my tongue on the reed the whole time and started the air a little bit earlier.
Okay. Yes. Supporting it before you release the sound. Yes, absolutely. Let's try it again and keep going. This is mainly an interpretive thing. Is a tam tam tam. Are you intentionally making these very separate? I
was trying to keep the relationship between the note and the space the same through the whole first 4 measures.
Okay. I think because it's piling up on itself, I don't know, it sounds like you're kind of puffing on each one of the notes. It's mainly if you want to have this separation or a little bit of space, make sure it's still on the wind, on one wind. It sounds on many like that, like you're kind of, throwing darts at each note. More on the wind, more because it destroys the continuity of the phrase if it's two separate and on different winds. Mm-hmm. That's relations absolutely in tune because you're just spelling out the key. Makes you absolutely centered.
Okay.
Let's do from the top. Yes. Let's keep going. From there. But make sure you know the note relationship. We're trying to play it from memory. Makes it not like people. Makes your positive releases because I can't really tell the difference between your gestures here.
Okay.
Sorry, I played a couple wrong notes. I'm playing it off the top of my head. Start from there. But make you not tempted to swell at the end of the note. And then remember when the music has motion, it's coming from somewhere and it's going somewhere. Coming from somewhere is still motion. Going somewhere is still motion. They're equal motion because it's motion.
Yeah.
So ba-ya-dum, ba-dum, dee-dum. You don't want to go da-ya-dum, unless you want to crescendo to the next part. Ba-ya-da, dee-da, dee-da. Then there'll be a bigger phrase that you can create.
Have to, but I was doing that on purpose.
Okay, good. But if you're going to do that, make sure I know where your stresses and releases are.
Okay.
If you're giving direction, you have to show me where the positures and the resolutions are. Ba-ya-dum, not ba-ya-dum. So if you're going ba-ya-dum, ba-bum, ba-bee, ba-ya-dum, ba-bum, it needs to resolve at some point.
Okay.
Let's start from the same place. Good. Yeah, make and when you go make sure that when you're playing those low notes, those are resonant and gradually build. It seems a little bit out front. Give me a little bit more contrast, a little more rise and fall, a little bit more build up, so that you're not. And the thing about it is, it's not necessarily just an interpretation thing. You don't want to give it all at once. It's like bringing out the appetizer, the dinner, the dessert, and the drinks at once. You want to save and pace it.
Okay.
Make sure that you're pacing yourself, pacing your phrasing, so that the ear doesn't get oversaturated with things, with the same kind of fortissimo type of thing. Let's start from the and he even writes it in the way that it rhythmically progresses, that it should build up. It starts getting faster as well. Let's start from Good. Good. Let's keep going. Good, good, good. Good. This is good. This is good. One thing about the articulation that I'm hearing, I want it to have a little bit more shape.
Okay.
I want your articulations to have more shape. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times articulation like speech like. It's not always, I'm hearing kind of a ta ta ti ta 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 ti ta ta and bum 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 bim bum 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 ta ti da da bum 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 ta ti da bum 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 beep bum bum, like more rounder, a little dashy, or like I want the main thing I want you to think about is these are technically, difficult. I mean, I've played a lot of these 10-on fantasies. They're technically challenging, but we don't want them to come off as just technically challenging. These are more sung like than we think they are, and they can be exciting. I don't want to take the excitement out of them, but you also have to have shape to the sound. And a little bit, I hear a little bit sometimes it's kind of loud or it's soft or it's loud or it's soft.
Okay.
But we're not much shapes that I want the articulation. So at least a lot of times when I'm singing articulations, I kind of have an M syllable with it. Bum 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 bum. If I sing like this, da 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 bum 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 bim bum 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 yum bum bum yum da ti da di da dum dum yum bum bum. More shapes to the articulations. Because not only does that make it, it would even make it sound your sound even more round. Think of shapes when you're playing, especially with articulation. A lot of times that's lost. The shape of an articulated note. Like really think about that. That's the beginning, how it starts, and how it ends. How's it shaped? Is it a dash? Is it a circle? So really those are things you want to think about. Especially when you have something that's repeated and articulated like this. You want it to have some sort of buoyancy to it. Because you have a great facility, great command, and here is great. I love your like extroverted way of playing. But you got to show them all the characters. The Dolce, the beautiful, the all of it. All right. Let's keep going from where you stop.
I'm sorry. Did you say from where I stopped or where I started?
Where you stop, just from where you stop. Yeah, keep going from there. So when you're playing, so one thing I want to bring up is when you're playing softly, support it more than more here because the pitch rises as you get soft.
Okay.
Remember, the embouchure shapes the sound; it doesn't make the sound. And also, your air and support controls the dynamic. Your air and support controls the dynamic more so than the pressure of the embouchure.
Okay.
Start from the same place. Really think about where you place that A, that beautiful A player at the beginning, and that is in the same place at the end of that. Good. More down, Tiara. Keep the pitch down. Di-oro, di-oro. Mhm. Good. Di-oro. And this one thing I want you to really think about in your softs, because I heard this earlier. When you say you play with your drone, make sure that in your softs that your pitch doesn't go up. This is a very difficult thing to do on the oboe to ensure that we're not just using the embouchure to bring the dynamic down. What that brings the risk of is that the pitch goes up because the aperture is very small.
Okay.
But we control that with the support. The aperture can remain relatively the same because we're not hiking things up. So that's something I really want, because they're very, I love how exciting you play. I love your imagination. But like I was saying with the previous players, make sure that you have those things that are in place that doesn't detract from your brilliance and your exciting way of playing. That I start hearing pitchiness or a tendency that I hear. You never want to show a tendency in your playing when you're playing. So make sure you really check in with this with a drone and really think about this, the shapes of your articulation.
Okay.
The shapes of your articulation. So when you're articulating that, it's not just the tongue is either striking the reed or it's not, but I'm thinking about the types of articulation and the shapes of articulation that I'm playing throughout the music. Okay?
Okay.
Beautiful job, Tyler. Great job. Great job. Very, very impressive. Great job.
Agreed. So now we'd like to open the floor to everyone attending to ask Titus questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions directly or throw them here in the chat and I'll read them off. So does anyone have any questions for Titus?
Yes. Questions. Everyone gets quiet at the question
I
place
know,
a lot
yeah.
of times. And then they email you later, hey, I got a question.
Exactly.
I
We
guess
were
I'll
talking
go
about
ahead
this
and
in class,
I'll go ahead and kick it off.
General audition tips. It says general audition tips here. Yes. So general, are we talking about is this person like orchestra auditions or school auditions? Which auditions are we talking about, or just auditions in general? Could that person clarify? Matthew Miller. Could you cover orchestral? Okay, so orchestral auditions are a very unique thing. And one thing we always have to think of in an orchestral audition, everybody shows up. I don't care where the orchestra's at. Everybody's showing up. It's the competition is going to be there. You're not going to show up to an audition when no one shows up, and if you're unprepared, you win. Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to show up absolutely prepared. One big thing that I do in an audition, just a general audition tip, aside from what I was talking about in the class today, recording yourself, what I call proof listening. Practice these things with a drone and a metronome to make sure that your servant's time, your rhythm is in place. I'm not saying play like a robot, but I really, really want your rhythm to be precise. Rhythm is very hard to do. Rhythm is a discipline. You're placing the notes where you don't normally want to place them in time. And you feel it a certain way, but time is telling you something else. It's kind of like aging, you just get older anyways. You can't control it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that make sure all those things are in place. But one of the main things I think about is most people show up to auditions, generally prepared or very prepared, but their minds are not prepared. And a lot of people destroy themselves mentally in auditions, especially if you've been taking auditions for a while. They pile up over time. And then you start getting more anxiety and more things are on the line, and you start thinking about the job and stuff like that. Like, I always say that when I show up to an audition, I'm so mentally prepared that when I'm playing on the stage, it's a nostalgic moment. I've played on that stage 1,000 times. I walked on that stage 1,000 times. I've played these excerpts 1,000 times perfectly in my head, exactly how I want to go. I've recorded it, I've crafted it, I've done everything. I know the purpose of every note. That when I'm playing the audition, that I'm able to trace my line and really play each note and each phrase with purpose, because I know exactly the function of everything on every page that I look at. And the other thing that I like to think about is that you don't want to go in there playing defensively. You don't want to go in there, oh, this is an obstacle course. You're only in control of one phrase at a time. And the audition is a string of phrases, one phrase at a time. down a list of different repertoire, one phrase at a time, that becomes an audition. So when you look at the list, like this list is big. No, it's one phrase at a time. That's all you can play. What is a big list? I understand what people are saying as far as time management, preparation, but you need to be present in such a way that you're there playing each phrase at a time. And I say be so prepared that you're not going there to play with inspiration at an audition. It's not a place for inspiration, it's a place for preparation. So yes, you need to have flexibility if someone asks you to do something different. But I akin it to this. It's like if you have a painter, you go to his exhibition and everything's done, the paint's dry. He doesn't take out his brush at the exhibition. Hold on, let me change some things. Guys, no. You say, this is my Le Tombeau de Couperin. And it's very prepared and you believe in it. And you play it in the way that you've prepared it. This is my La Scala di Seta. This is my Mozart. This is my Brahms. And you walk off the stage. But you're so prepared, like I said, with all these objective things that you proof listened and played with Metro, you played it for friends, you played mock auditions, you've done the mental practice, you've done the work that you can go in there and trace your own line and really believe in the musical decision that you came up with beforehand. And you're so comfortable in that space that you're thinking about the music and not the audition. It's not an audition, it's an opportunity for those who prepare. People go audition when they like trying. But you go for an opportunity when you're prepared. It's all about switching your thinking, how you think about it. So those are my general audition tips. I could talk about audition for 30 minutes alone, that question, but those are some general things to walk away with.
Awesome. Technical question. Can you talk more about support and quiet notes and demonstrate the quote right and wrong way to do that?
Okay. So the way I talk about quiet notes is like, it's interesting that we talk about quiet notes. Like a forte is a magnified piano sound. So you have to really think about the origin of the sound itself. It comes from a quiet place. So when you're playing your lone tones, you're playing it softly. That's the origin of the sound, which means that must be a comfortable place as well. It's not an inconvenience mezzo forte. It's a piano sound that you've cultivated. Every dynamic is cultivated. In the proper way, if I'm talking about physically, I'm not clamping down on the reed. I want my reeds and my setup to be in such a way that I'm playing from the inside of the sound out. I'm not trying to control and maintain the sound from not going nuts. So if I'm playing into the reed and it inflates and I'm able to relax into the sound, support and focus my air, that I'm able to play softly, and the reed is, up to pitch. It's not, super flat or nothing like that, and too flexible. Reed has a ability to be between flexibility and stability is what we're trying to find. That's different for people. Having a healthy resistance to your reed, not playing on a resistant reed that you think has a dark sound, that has false darkness, it sounds stiff, but supporting the sound in such a way that you're able to play with a piano sound, not a piano sound. Those are two different pianos. So I want you to shape your wind and support it. And it's just using less volume of air with incredible support to support the soft sound. And as you increase the air and the volume of air, it gets louder. But a lot of people have their volume of air the same, but biting down. But that makes the pitch unstable. It's very easy to just down here. This is the last channel that your sound comes through, is your embouchure. That's the last channel. So really think about it. You're creating the sound from resistance within the body, then this shapes it. So even the dynamics are not necessarily just controlled here. It's easier to work here because that's what we're familiar with. So think about support, less volume of air, make sure that your reed is in place, that you're able to play piano without trying to control the reed from playing a default at a forte level.
Awesome. So a conceptual question, how do you structure your practice?
Great questions. I am very religious about my warm-up. Like I say, you improve in your warm-up, you learn music. Of course, you get better when you learn different repertoire, but you're really thinking about just your fundamentals in your warm-up. It's the only time you're only thinking about just fundamentals, like how am I producing the sound? So how I start my warm-up is I play my scales with the drone. just one octave from low B flat up to, A major, one octave. I start low at the bottom of the oboe. I want to feel comfortable down there because everything going up and transferring up gets more comfortable if I have the bottom of the oboe figured out. Then I play my lone tones. I play them in ninths. So I play from a low D up to an E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I slur from that E, that ninth, back down to the low D. So, and then I go up to all the way to G to A. So D to G, I play my lone tones. Then after that, I play extended scales. This usually takes me about 20 minutes. Extended scales I play, I play a key of the week, say if it's C major, I go to a high G. I'm trying to incorporate a high A in there now because I play it in thirds as well. And I play it in fourths and I play it in fifths. The reason why I do that because I'm trying to make the sound as even as possible, even when I'm playing fourths, fifths, sixths. Sometimes I go even far beyond that. And I do it with mixed articulation as well. And I go through all these articulations, and I also do it double tonguing as well because I think double tonguing is a great tool that we should incorporate in our warm up. But I make sure I warm up with the drone and the metronome all the time, every day, every single day. I have to center my pitch because usually as oboe players, we tend to hear the pitch higher because we think the sound is ringing at a higher pitch. You're just playing sharp most of the time. So open up, allow the sound to have more resonance, and allow the sound to have more ring. Remember, depth and ring, round. Think of adjectives that you can think of that to accent your most optimal sound. And that's how I really place my sound, get my win, my embouchure going at the beginning of the day. Then I go into my practice and my repertoire. But I would never go into just playing repertoire. If I have 15 minutes to practice in this day, it's going to be scales, lone tones, and extended scales, arpeggios, things like that. Yeah.
Totally makes sense. And leapfrogging off of that question, one from Haley, what other habits do you think oboists should do daily in order to function successfully as a professional orchestral musician?
Ooh. Be very efficient at making reads. Be very consistent with what you're doing. Know your setup. Like really know. I know down to the staple, down to the cane I use, down to the shape. Like I'm not fussing with stuff. My gouge. Like really, really prepare your cane. Like really know how to select cane well. Know how to gouge like good pieces of cane. Have sharp knives, please. Have sharp knives. After you make your reads, sharpen your knives at the end of the day so that when you take your knives back out at the beginning of the day, they're sharp. So try your best to have your routine down packed because I'm playing 3 to 4 shows a day. I also play recitals. I also do video work, as people say, like a tale or two tales. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Like I do other things that are really, really pushes my playing to the limit. Like I'm always trying to like push my playing to the limit. I teach at CCM as well. So I have a full studio of students there. So there are a lot of things that I do that if I'm not completely organized, I won't be able to play optimally. So I have to have my warm up. I have to be very, very organized. That's the best way for it to be a professional, is that you have to show up sounding great every day. It's not just the performance. I'm going to sound good at performance. No, every rehearsal, your colleagues are counting on you. You are part of a larger machine and people count on you. And they have a better time when you're prepared. And most of all, like one of the best things, the most simple advice I give people, be nice to people. Just be a kind person. It goes a long way. The people that you see today will be the people that you see later. So build great camaraderie and great friendships with colleagues and relationships. You'll be shocked at people you'll see 10, 20 years down the road that you'll have to work with about, I thought we were done, So be nice. Be prepared and be nice.
That is great advice. I know you talked about this in your Double Reed Dish episode, which everyone should also go listen to. But the question we have is, what brought you to the oboe? What made young Titus choose that?
Oh, my story's pretty simple. I wish I had a more interesting story. So I came from a very musical family. I am the youngest of 6 kids. I guess that's interesting. So I grew up in a super musical family. Everyone played an instrument. It wasn't like, are you going to do music? It's like, what instrument are you going to play? That was the question. And my sister played the violin, and I wanted to play saxophone at first, and then my dad took me to the shop to look at the saxophone. I thought it was kind of ugly. Don't tell your saxophone friends that. I didn't think it was a pretty looking instrument. I was like, oh, it looks weird. And I wanted a spit valve for some reason. I didn't get a spit valve, but I did get an oboe that puts a ring on my jeans every time I place it there after playing it for a while. But my thing that I was in love with the sound. She showed me the second movement of Brahms' Violin Concerto, and I was sold. I thought it was like a quirky instrument. It was unique. It was difficult, you know. So those things, I like the challenge. I wanted to play a difficult instrument. I don't know why I chose to do that. Sometimes when I see my friends playing flute and clarinet, I'm like, oh, why did I choose that? But you know, oboe, we get the best solos, so it's all worth it.
Agreed. So how do you deal with reed making slumps? When you have a problem with your reeds and you don't know how to fix it, do you have a checklist or routine to cover your bases there?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. One thing that people have to really keep in mind, the fundamental thing, especially there's two fundamental things you got to check. Make sure your gouge is right, because sometimes your gouging machine could be out and you're in the reed slump. There is a tangible solution to whatever's going on. The intangible solution is make sure when you're approaching the reed desk that you're approaching it with a positive mindset, because your reads are only as good as the mindset you bring to the table. If you like this and I gotta make reads and you're rushing, and I ask people, what are you rushing for? I gotta get a good read. And you have a whole day. Take your time. Scrape elegantly across the reed, across the cane. Don't get too emotionally attached to the reed, because I know we're petting the reed and getting a little cane off the reed, scraping it, taking the little, things off that's sticking out. We can get really attached really easy. I do the same thing. They're like, this better be great. This is the reed of the century. And the other thing is make sure your gouge is right. And very important, make sure your oboe is adjusted. Like adjust your oboe before you make your reeds. You'll be shocked how you're compensating your reed making your oboe isn't adjusted. I adjust my oboe every day. And if it hasn't been seen by a repair person, go get a checkup, every 2 months or 3 months, whatever. I go every month because I play a lot. But make sure that you really get it checked up. Check out your oboe. And usually I have my checklist. I do my reed test. I make sure like I have flexibility and stability. I do aspirated attacks and make sure it's, I can start from a very soft place. I articulate very loudly to make sure that the tone doesn't spread. I gliss it to see its flexibility. Those types of things. I play scales with the drone. Make sure you're playing your reed in tune. Make your reeds with a tuner. Be as objective as possible. Those are things that help. When you're not using a tuner or some objective test, make sure your oboe is adjusted. Make sure your gouge is measuring correctly. Make sure you have tight sides. Your sides aren't loose or anything like that. Have a reed journal. Like just small things. I know read journal sounds kind of daunting and super nerdy, but you got to really get in there, just get nerdy with it. That's the only way you're going to be consistent is if you're thorough. I call it having high musical hygiene. There are people who brush and there are people who brush, floss, and use mouthwash. You want to make sure that you're getting all the nooks and crannies of things when you're doing your preparation. So make sure you have thorough tests when you're checking your reads. And when you're going through these tests, to make sure your knives are sharp. And when you're finishing a read, this is a really good thing people need to take away. When you're at the last part of your read, the last 10 minutes, resharpen your knives. Don't just keep scraping, they get dull. And then and then the last part, you destroy the reed. Like really knives throughout your reed making process, it will make your life a lot easier. You'll have consistent reads.
Awesome. And I'll end with maybe the most nebulous question, but a topic that I think is really important. And that question is, what inspires you?
Ooh, what inspires me?
Yeah, pretty open-ended, but I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah. What inspires me? I would say, a lot of art inspire me. Lots of different things inspire me. I'm being completely honest. I've been listening to a lot of Miles Davis recently. That's really inspiring. Like the cover art of the things he did, and like the clothes. I love the clothing of jazz players and stuff. Like I think they play excellent. It has such swag. I like to bring that into classical a little bit. I think that that's really cool. They're performing at a high level. My teachers inspire me. My mentors inspire me. Colleagues and my friends that do great things inspire me. I'm always just trying to keep myself around people that are uplifting me more than people who question what I'm doing. Like when I chose to do a short film of Tell It Two Tales, like, it's a bizarre idea that like I came up with, and I knew I had done some previous video work, and like they said before, I had gotten an Emmy for some things, but I wanted to keep taking things further, and I'm still there's definitely a lot more to come that's in the works, but things I can't speak of right at the moment. But these type of things like inspire me, seeing visual artists and seeing how we can recreate our art form. And I say the internet is a new stage and we have new audience. I mean, look at the platform that you guys have built with this. I mean, this is very cool. Who would have knew that you have Mary Lynch here, you have Russ Lou, you have me here, like you have access to all these people that we didn't have access to before. Now we have Zoom and people creating their own audience and their own things. That's inspiring to me. I really watch things like that and I say, hey, it's not just the cog in the machine, but I'm going to create the machine and the cogs. People really making their own way is inspiring to me. So even the old guard, like I said, Miles Davis, Elaine DeVos, the Richard Woodhams, the John Farillos, like the Peter Bowmans, and even the Europeans, the Ramon Ortegas, the Arbeit Myers, the Heinz Holligers, the Gordon Hunts, all these really amazing players that are out there. Diana Daugherty, she's like my favorite. She's incredible. Like I'm trying to get technique like her. Like I'm getting close, but I'm getting there. She got a few years on her, but she's amazing. Like that's inspiring to me. Martin Frost, like he's like the GOAT as far as like doing innovative things. He's dancing, skating, and playing. Like I look at different stuff and I get inspired. Than just sitting in the orchestra, which is great. And I take my job seriously. Obviously, I'm picky with excerpts and stuff, but I like people who push the boundaries, like people who create their own things, I like people who inspire me, because a lot of times in this field, we're taught that there's scarcity and there are no jobs and there's nothing to be done. And what are you going to do? How are you going to pay your bills? But now we have so many mediums where we can create our own audiences and build our own things to feed ourselves and also inspire others and connect more people. I'm inspired by that. So what inspires me, all of those things. So I love seeing these new mediums and people doing things. So I'm out here watching and keep my eye on things, and which helps me push myself to the limit and create new art and create new platforms. So I'm just glad that this generation is really kind of making their own instead of just kind of falling into the cogs. And if you want to do the traditional thing, that's great too. That's awesome. I help my students get to the traditional roots and non-traditional roots. But we have to know that we don't need to have a scarcity mindset, but an abundance mindset when it comes to this, because you're an artist first, your title is second. So I love seeing what everyone is doing. So yeah, all those things help me stay overjoyed. Obviously, this is an exciting topic for me, so I can go on and on for that for days.
Absolutely, yeah, that is so insightful and inspiring in and of itself, for sure. So I would love to thank everyone who performed and attended today, and obviously a special thank you to Titus Underwood for being here and teaching us all. It means so much to have you support our efforts to provide education opportunities to the online Oboe community, just like you were talking about. So we will be uploading a replay of this masterclass on our YouTube channel in the next few days, and we'll also be sending out a survey for those of you who are here watching. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. It only takes about a minute to fill it out. A lot of you have been asking if we will be hosting more masterclasses, and I'm very excited to say that our fall masterclass series will be announced in the coming weeks with 3 new and exciting teachers for you to play for and learn from. You can always find the most up-to-date info at reedesign.io/SMS. Until then, enjoy the rest of your summer, everyone, and practice well. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Titus. Bye.
Bye-bye.